Hello, everybody. Today we're doing something. Oh, let me get this recording as well. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope everyone is having a fantastic week. Today, we have a very special training prepared for all of you where I'm going to be interviewing a client and friend of ours who's now been with us for around 6 months, who has a story that I know is going to be extremely inspiring for a lot of the people that are in this group because for the last week, we have been talking about the fourth phase of clinical marketer, where we are now creating new resources and new trainings for DPTs who are thinking about starting their own practice. They want to start their own practice, but quite honestly, they don't know if it's possible for themselves. And they're not sure how to get out of the day-to-day grind of their current job. And they're looking down the road, looking at their compensation, looking at their loans, looking at the type of life that they want to be able to provide for their family and what kind of parent and partner they want to be, and realizing that there's a bit of a mismatch between their current circumstances and where they want to be and where they're heading. And the only thing that is holding them back is the proper inspiration to take the action that is necessary to start that practice. Go and bet on yourself. And I wanted to bring Dr. James Babana, in here because his story is one that aligns so closely with what everyone thinks is so far off in the distance, where he started, had a cash practice, just got it started, new area, didn't have a whole lot of traction early on. And between now and the last 180 days or so, he's now in a position where he has a five-figure a month practice. He's hitting those numbers. He's starting to hire, and that vision that he had for himself is starting to materialize. And so I wanted to bring him out here to share his journey, share the raw, honest truth of what starting a practice actually looks like, what went well, what didn't go well, and ultimately why going through it and taking that scary jump is absolutely worth it if you go all in on yourself. So, James, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. And I appreciate everything that you said about the journey because the path is never as smooth as we want it to be. But I think just by staying on it and continuing to pursue that dream, that goal of ours, eventually if you stay on it long enough, you start to figure out what's working, what's not, and you're able to smooth out the path a little bit. Um,
Right.
I have a big thanks to you and the clinical marketer team because when I came to you guys and I was like, hey, I saw what you guys were doing, I really loved even just the messaging and everything that I was watching from, I think it was like the cash. You have a Facebook group that's more of a general group, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just
Cash
watching
flow
from the outskirts.
headquarters.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was watching from the outskirts, and I really appreciated, some of the messaging that you were offering, and I was like, this seems like it could really help me. It was a way for me to find like, okay, I have my service. I don't have people, especially where I am in
Mhm.
Scottsdale. Like I kind of remote from the larger majority of the population. It was a way for me to create a thriving practice. Um, and uh, you guys made the process so seamless, teaching me how to use the CRM, teaching me what a CRM was and how, like, add creatives, add copy, understanding the whole cycle from somebody clicks on the ad, fills out the form, you call them, what to say, how to navigate the conversation. And you helped it to make it feel more comfortable. It's never truly comfortable because you're always stepping outside of your comfort zone to do something like that.
Right.
But you made the process that much easier. So I appreciate that. And then also, I mean, when you're saying it's my story, like I don't feel like it's my story anymore. I feel like it's God's story telling it through me type of thing. My faith is a big part of my life and my practice as well. So I cannot, neglect the role that he's played in my life as well. So I appreciate you guys and
As
I'm
it
looking
should be.
forward to this conversation.
Yeah, as it should be. And I think that it's so wonderful how you
how impactful your faith has been in your journey, and how big of a role it plays within your business and within your family. I think that's great, but I also want to give you credit because what you've done isn't easy. Most people don't get to where you are. Most people fail, and clinical marketer, our team, we won't accept any credit for all the hard work that you put in. We may have laid a path, but you put in a tremendous amount of effort. You showed up, you persevered when things got hard, you asked tough questions, and you did the work. You did the thing that you said you're going to do, which in today's age, most people just aren't willing to do. And so I do want to give you a tremendous amount of credit as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My wife has been a huge support system. Even last night I was asking her, I was like, hey, like I feel really tired. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm doing a lot lately. I feel really tired. She goes, you're doing the right thing. She goes, you're working hard and you're tired for a reason. But she goes, you're not complaining like you were because when I was an employee, like I felt like things were out of my control. And I was always doing things for someone else, for someone else's vision, someone else's way of doing things, policies and procedures. Don't forget to fill out this form. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was working on the dream that was, brewing. And
Mm.
um, this is it. This is the vision.
Now, I want to get into the beginning stages of when you first decided that this is it, I'm starting a practice. But before we get into that, I want to future pace just a little bit. Where are you at in the practice today? Tell us a little bit about it. What do your numbers look like? What have you accomplished over the last few months?
So over the last few months, really, I started becoming profitable sometime in September of last year.
Mm,
I've been in business since January of 23. And since then, since I started working with you guys, I started gaining more access to leads, understanding like the
mm,
process of evaluation, all that. I'm at a point now where I finally broke like 20,000 in revenue, which was incredible. That was in January. So that
I wish
was
I had my
just
bell.
me. I know, I know. So I finally broke that, which was incredible. Now I'm just going about fulfilling those visits and still,
Mhm,
working that process. So my future pacing is, I'm looking at hiring another therapist. I'm looking at growing the office, expanding our services so that we can offer,
mm,
higher quality services to the patients that we do
mhm.
have and just offering more value in the sense of like eventually like recovery options and all those perks that you typically get with this type of an experience. So
Mhm. Great. So you're looking to add on a lot of those other kind of high performance add-ons and continuity programs to kind of stack onto the packages you already have.
yeah, exactly. I'm really
Yeah.
working the continuity part too, especially because I
Mhm.
mean people understand like, hey, I'm coming in to get some treatment for an injury that I have. They
Yep.
don't really wrap their minds around, recovery and wellness in the sense of a continuity program. Like, hey, how could this benefit you to see me once a month or twice a month to continue working on this like long-term goal and vision
Yep.
of improving your performance or your even like wellness and recovery. So, adding things like down the line, like Normatec boots, or maybe when I can, have the size and the space and throw down the money for it, even like,
Yeah.
like a cold plunge or something, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are
Get
cool
it.
things that I'm thinking about.
I think you'd be crazy not to. We're doing a lot of that inside of Ben's practice. We're doing a lot of that inside of Chris's as well with the medical fitness training on the back
Yeah.
end, which has been going incredibly well. Chris is doing some really amazing things where he has a lot of those kind of supplemental services that he's now bundling into a membership that's going to be really, really cool. Because all the numbers, all the market data says it's like this is one of the best times to get into the cash physical therapy game and be offering those kind of higher luxury. Well, they were luxuries in the past, but now over in 2024, the health and wellness market is going to hit $1.3 trillion dollars. Even though that inflation has gone like through the roof, the spending on those kind of services is only going up, which is suggesting that like investing in cryo, red light therapy, and getting all working with personal trainers and physical therapists. That's becoming more of a non-negotiable than a luxury these days. And so I think the direction you're heading is really, really smart because the demand's only going up for that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I don't know what else I could say about it, but people need
Excite
it.
100%. It's exciting times to be in for sure. So
Yeah.
you've accomplished a lot over the last several months, but take us back to the very beginning. Like you said, you were kind of in a job and you weren't very fulfilled. Tell us a little bit more about where you were working and what was the moment that you decided that you were going to start a practice.
Well, I think that the time even takes me further back than this practice and before my previous practice, because I'm coming from Illinois where I had my other practice as well. Before I moved, I had a practice, I let it go.
Mm,
And the reason why I ended up doing my own thing was because I was frustrated with my management. I was frustrated that, I was being worked down to the bone and I didn't feel like I was actually valued. I felt like it was just valued for what I could produce and type of thing, which again, for some people it's like, okay, they're realist. They're like, I understand, like I'm an employee, I need to make my business money and things like that. Um,
right.
but it was to my detriment. That's what it felt like. And I said, if I'm going to be working my bones and my soul down to the ground to a fine powder, let me at least do it on my terms and let me build up a business that, who knows, maybe one day I can pass on to my kids or, I can sell and, help myself to actually invest in my future and retirement, all that. So that's really what set me out to do it. Now, over
Mm,
here, when we moved, I was initially working for a company and that company went through some restructuring, management started changing, and I realized that the original work atmosphere started changing. So,
mm.
um, I realized at that point our visions didn't quite align, and I decided to part ways amicably. And I respect them. I still love everybody that's working over there. But I wanted to start my own thing and really recreate like a 2.0 of what I was doing.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what that like 2.0 looked like? Like what is the vision that you're trying to create for your practice?
Yeah, so what I wanted to create was more of it's kind of interesting that I started like push through performance
Mm,
because like in hindsight, it might have even been like push through wellness or push through recovery, something
uh,
type of thing. Because
yeah.
my background is in massage therapy. That's what I did before I started physical therapy. And I've always had this very like restorative wellness, like minded spirit.
Mm,
Where I got the idea for push through performance was like I was on a hike and I was really in a hike that I should not have been because I wasn't quite prepared for it. I was planning on turning back early into it, and I didn't have enough water for the stretch that we were at. I didn't have enough food, so I wasn't prepared. Um, so in my mind, it was just like push through, push through, push through, and that's where the performance piece came in because there's people that want to get back to hiking. There's people that want
mm,
to get back to pickleball, get back to golf, or improve their ability to exercise without pain or with less pain. Because sometimes we're not good at like completely resolving things, but we can at least make it so that it's better and more comfortable.
yeah.
So that's what I wanted to create for people, a space where they have a chance to um, restore their body and also get their mind in the right frame of mind so that they could continue to excel beyond just our typical plan of care 2 times a week for
Yeah.
4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. Those people that just want to see how far they can go. Like how good can they get? It's definitely like that's definitely who I am. That's why I see Colin, who's part of a mastermind as well. But his practice is only like 15 minutes away from me. But like, yeah, I think the performance name is perfect. What it sounds like you're trying to make, especially with the other services you're trying to stack on there, I think that's perfect. And I mean, if I end up moving down to Arizona, you and I are definitely going to have to link up pretty often here.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. When are you planning on moving?
Well, we're actually Jen and I are both very we're looking at the end of summer. So this year it's either there or California. But
There
I'm
we go.
hoping Arizona because California is insane. But let's get back on track.
Right.
So it's incredible. You started the practice. Tell us a little bit about that move. Like when you actually started it, what did that look like?
It was, you know, first it started with the idea, and then it was like, okay, how do I put this idea into practice? Obviously, I'd started up a practice before, so I knew about the steps of, you know, creating an LLC and, you know, articles of incorporation, get the AIN, go to the bank. So that part was easy for me. Oh, sorry, we have automatic lights over here. That part was easy for me. So the part that was harder for me was creating the business plan, like understanding who I'm going to reach, how I'm going to reach them. And to this day, I'm still refining it. I will continuously be refining it because the vision is going to change and, you know, over the period of time. Same thing with the mission. But you know, I found a local business that was looking for, you know, practitioners to kind of rent space, and it was part of a larger lifestyle medicine practice. And they saw things in a very similar way that I did, and it worked really well. They had a gym, and I brought the services, and that way we can kind of complement each other's stuff, where we can both refer each way. And then really it was just about, you know, making sure I had a table, the supplies, and just moving in and starting to work.
Nice. And so, like, how did you end up finding that partnership? Did you do a little bit of shopping around, or did you just stumble across it?
Yeah, I was shopping around. So I started reaching out to local gyms. Back in Illinois,
Mm,
I was inside of a personal training gym, and it was
okay.
awesome. I had a great experience. So I tried to look for something similar here. A lot of the gyms either had somebody pre-existing in there, like another physical therapist or a chiropractor, or they just
Yeah.
weren't very easy to reach. So it made it difficult to do some outreach. So I ended up finding this place through a farmer's market. So there was a personal trainer representing the business at a farmer's market. My wife and kids we were walking around, and my son went and jumped over on their, I think he had like a Bosu kind of sitting out. My son
Mm,
went
yeah.
and then a rower. So it just sparked up the conversation before you know it. Hey, you know, like, I'm looking for some space. Like, are you guys looking for any physical therapists to take up space? And before you know it, like, I started a conversation with the physician over here, and
Mhm.
it's been a good partnership ever since.
Yeah, what a sign, right? Your son immediately just runs right over and it links up with the sounds like a beautiful partnership. And how long have you been with them now?
Since, I mean, since I started since in January. So
January?
I
Yeah.
initially started when I didn't have a physical location. I started doing more mobile services
Yep.
where, you know, I was treating people in their homes um, for, you know, throughout the week. And that was good. And that helped me to start and at least cushion the transition between jobs. Because
Right.
when I decided to transition, I went all in into it. And I told my wife, I said, you know, Tony Robbins has a concept called like burn the ships. You know, don't leave
Hmm.
yourself any opportunities to turn back, because then you'll always have that safety to like turn back to. So I had an opportunity where the job was offering me another location where I can experience like a different type of, you know, a different way of operating basically.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, you can still work 30 hours, grow your business on the side whenever you're ready. I'm like, I know that I'm never going to feel fully comfortable to leave. It's not easy to leave your job. It's nothing is easy about it. When you are making that decision, you're literally deciding to leave safety and security of a consistent paycheck on the table and to go off and create your own path. It's nothing about it is comfortable. I just knew that that safety and security was slowly eating away at me. And I knew
Yeah.
that I had to make that transition.
Were there signs or a thought process that you went through that helped you come to that conclusion? Because I know like a lot of people feel the way that you felt, but making that actually doing it is eluding them and they just keep thinking about it. So was there anything that kind of pushed you to finally pull the trigger?
That's a really good question. I've mm, aside from the way that, you know, my previous employment relationship was going, aside from that,
Yeah.
I would say my nature has always been, sometimes to my detriment, act first, and then think about what you did later type of thing. So
Typical entrepreneur fashion.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's again, sometimes to my detriment. Like I've started other things like nutrition, like I've become like an independent contractor for like this nutrition company, trying to offer like selling, prepackaged food to people, thinking that it would, improve their nutrition. I wanted to become a health coach. I wanted to become, a licensed life insurance agent, to supplement my physical therapy home health practice. I've done a lot in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And those ideas are still there. But I think what happened was I was just ready to change my circumstances when the pain of your current situation exceeds your tolerance and you're like, if I continue in this way, I know it's going to hollow me out and I can't stand with the future thought of me living a life that I don't agree with. So it was at a point where I couldn't reconcile that future version of myself. I was like, I can't see myself being that way. I know I'm not going to be a good husband. I'm not going to be a good brother. I'm not going to be a good father if I'm not doing something that's making me feel complete.
Right. And I think that's really wise, and it's kind of crazy how few people have that kind of foresight to be able to recognize that things aren't going to just change on their own, and they're caught in this. It's called the region beta paradox, which is where paradoxically you'd be in a better situation if your situation was a little bit worse, because then you'd actually do something about it. And if you don't have that foresight, you're just trapped there. And so I'm glad that you were able to kind of like look down the road and recognize it's like the reason I'm an entrepreneur is because I want to be able to be there for my kids every single day. I don't want to miss a single moment, a single game, none of that, because I didn't get to have that growing up. That's why I do everything that I do. And so I'm glad that you kind of are seeing that as well.
Yeah. The other thing
So
I'll say about that is that it took a lot for me to make those commitments. Like just because I was
yeah.
ready to make those commitments doesn't mean that the sacrifice was any easier.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
when I first started, I hired a business coach for 5 grand. I bought a business planning mastery workshop. I paid um, about 25 grand, 25 grand. I paid about 2,500 for a sales training workshop or like a
Mhm.
program.
Yeah.
Um, and what I realized was, like I started buying books and listening to other entrepreneurs, like for example, Alex Hormozy, like created $100 million offers and
Crazy
most
not to.
recently, yeah,
Yeah.
$100 million leads. Like I started buying books and trying to wrap my mind around like a new way of thinking, new paradigms of thinking. And then when
Yeah.
your program came along, you guys presented me the offer. I said, yes, I'm going to do it because I know that if I don't, the opportunity cost is going to be that much greater than anything I could have spent right now. So same thing when it came time to mastermind. I'm willing to put down the money because I know that in order to continue to grow, I need to have access to that circle of people that are doing things greater than I am right now.
Yeah. That proximity is the most important thing. Like I you learn, I mean, you were far smarter than me and learned this lesson a lot faster. Like it took me 6 years before I hired a coach or a mentor, and I just lived off less than $1,000 for 6 years, and it was miserable. But I thought I was, king of the world because I was just scrappy and figuring it out, and didn't, realize that I delayed my progress by so much by wearing the fact that I could watch YouTube videos and figuring it out on my own like a badge of honor, not realizing how much that it was truly costing me. And so you were in you were reading books right away. You started investing in coaching right away. What was the for people who are just starting their practices, what would you say is like one of the biggest lessons you learned that kind of helped you get through those initial phases of practice ownership?
Being okay and picking yourself back up after feeling like you're failing. You know,
Yeah.
one of the hardest things and something that I'm still confronting to this day is that when I don't, feel like my patients are, making the progress that I want them to make, or, they're still struggling with like an injury that I'm like I feel partially responsible for. I have to realize that, that's a learning opportunity. And, if, if I don't conduct a sales call, or like the initial, I shouldn't say sales call. It's not a sales call, but if I don't conduct the initial calls, you know, to the best of the ability that I know I have, and I feel like I missed an opportunity to get somebody in to help them feel better, or, if I flub an evaluation or whatever the case is, I know that that failure is an opportunity for growth, and I know that I will have another chance at doing it again, possibly,
Right.
and succeeding. As long as I continue putting in the work, as long as I continue showing up, I'll have another chance. But if I hang up my gloves and I just, resign, then, I've self-sabotaged. And I brought this up in the group and, privately to you guys about, how do you stop yourself from self-sabotaging? Well, I mean, it's very obvious. Like, you just stop doing it. Um, you know, the hard part is actually committing to realizing when you're self-sabotaging, and and having a support system around you to help you to get out of that like cyclical behavior. So yeah, that's the deepest that I can go right now.
No, and I mean that's the most important piece of all of it. If you can just do that, if you can change your relationship with failure, you can accomplish pretty much anything because time's the only factor you got to deal with at that point. As long as you're
Yeah,
willing to keep getting up and doing it. So I think that was really, really sage advice, and having a good relationship with yourself and really knowing yourself and knowing when you are self-sabotaging. That's something that still eludes me. I think we're all guilty of that, and I don't think we'll ever truly outgrow it. But you're right;
yeah,
you need a strong group of people around you who can pull you out of the craziness that we work ourselves into, um, and force us to step back and realize, like, yeah, you might feel like a failure today, but like look behind you. Look at what you've accomplished so far. Even though you might be looking up at the mountain at how much further you have to go, like you cleared this like the summit pretty good. Like you're so
yeah,
I think it was really, really good advice.
yeah.
So for going through and when you're starting your practice, I just have a few more questions here, but what would you say were the biggest mistakes that you made initially in your practice that kind of just kept you from finding the progress you wanted to find?
Um, that's a really good question. I th it sounds a little counterintuitive, but maybe you and I can have a conversation about this. So
Yeah,
I think I've valued, so it's kind of paradoxical because you have to value yourself in order to like actually achieve, right? Like you have to have
right.
some value for yourself. I think I
Yeah.
overvalued my time and what I was doing. Um, and I don't know. It's really hard for me to put this into words. Let me see
All
if I
right,
can
try
unpack this.
because I like where you're
So
going with it.
I think I overvalued myself in the beginning. And I faced like a harsh reality in the sense that, like, hey, what you're doing, like other people can do, and you really have to be more humble. You really have to understand that um your services, somebody else can come along and open the doors and like and offer these services and show value and like in ways that are similar to you. Like be humble about what you're doing. Don't be arrogant. And I think at the beginning I was a little bit arrogant about what I was offering and and I felt like I was getting nowhere with that. Even in the way that I would conduct, some of my initial like discovery calls and things like that, like I made myself out to be this really I think I was a little difficult each in some cases,
Yeah.
or I had like a condescending tone in some cases. I'm like, why are like simple things like, for example, somebody tells me that they've had pain for 2 years, that they haven't done anything about it. at least in the sense of like going to like an authority or like some type of like expert.
Right.
They're working to the bone. They haven't made any lifestyle changes in their life, and they're at a point now where they can make those changes. And I'm like, why wouldn't you do it? Like, like I have to realize, like, I have to be humble about the fact that everybody achieves or everybody will come to that place in their own time. Everybody will like, and me forcing it on them is not going to make
Mhm.
that process any easier because in some cases, the reason why they got to where they are is because of, those patterns, those mindsets, like how we are talking about self-sabotage, for example. Like
Mhm.
everybody has their own cross to bear, and
Yeah.
that might be theirs, and they just need a little bit more compassion. They need a little like somebody to just walk them through it. They need somebody to talk to them um hey, I'm not just a clinician, but I'm also like your fellow human being.
Right.
Like let's talk about what's really going on with you that could help you get to the next level or something like that. Um, versus having a condescending nature of like, oh God, look at these people. They're just not making changes. They're not doing anything right for their lives. I think my mindset was the biggest thing. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, no, that I mean that was so powerful, and no one's actually talked about that on any of my interviews. And that is one of the first things that has to go in order to be successful. Because I see so many practice owners who are new practice owners. They're really job owners. They haven't really gotten um, uh, any consistency quite yet because they can't get out of their own way because in their mind they are the hero of their journey when like the hero in the story, including their patients, not realizing like they're the guide and their patients are the hero, and your only job isn't to get them better, is to lead them to the information and the knowledge they need to have to realize that going with you is the path that is in their own best interest. And that's why, like when you corrected and said it's not a sales call, you're absolutely right because it's you're their guide. You're providing them with the right information and providing them the questions that they haven't asked themselves yet so that they can find the correct answer for themselves, whether that's with you or with someone else. That's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Did, well, was there a particular moment where you realized that, okay, I have to change and approach this from a different angle where my only job is to help this person, you know, come to the conclusion that they need to work with me versus me trying to just push them into it.
Yeah, and it hasn't been like one particular moment. I'll be very honest about that. Like it's
Yeah,
it's a slow boil, and that really is the theme of this whole talk too.
yeah,
It's a slow boil versus like a rapid boil, or it's like a simmer, I should say.
right.
Like most
Yeah,
of the changes happen when nobody's looking. Most of the changes are happening when you even least expect it, or when you're not quite
yeah,
paying attention. You're just going through the motions and you're just acquiring, you're trying to interpret. It's kind of like when you have an issue and you sleep on it and your brain is still sorting it out. Um, the moments where I hit like a harsher reality was like one time I was like, oh man, like, did you ever take a sales class? Like that's really good. I'm like, I didn't want to come off that way. I thought I was literally like guiding the conversation in like a really positive way and asking like good, deep, like introspective questions. But it
yeah,
came off really salesy. And I'm like, I don't want to come off salesy. I want the conversation to
yeah.
come off organically. I want it to feel like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to help you,
Hmm.
and not like some cheesy lines or anything like that. So
Right.
the more authentic I feel, the more that they receive that, and the less that I receive pushback for being salesy.
Yeah, right. Do you have any tips off the top of your head for someone who hasn't taken any sales classes, who has no idea how to sell? Any advice?
Yeah, I mean, I would say always, if you're doing more talking, then that's a flag. So listening is the biggest component with these talks, even during your evaluation, like listening and observing and all that. Like, what do they say? You have two eyes, two ears, like a
One
nose
month.
and one mouth, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you have more sensory abilities than you have to like communicate. So I think the best thing that we can do is listen, ask more questions based off somebody. Like it's like somebody's like, hey, I've been having this pain for 6 months, and it's okay. It's like you just say, okay, and they just go, well, yeah, it's
Hmm.
like it's bothering me a little bit. How's it
Hmm.
bothering you? Okay, well, like it's trouble when I'm sleeping, and it's making it really difficult for me to exercise. Okay,
Yeah.
and what about exercise is challenging for you? Like asking all these, like just peeling the layers of the onion back, and you're giving them a chance to open up and talk about things that they typically don't talk about with
Yeah.
anybody else, possibly.
Right. And no one takes the time to ask them those questions. No one cares. They just want to stamp them into a schedule. Um,
Yeah.
so I think our framework that we use is that during the collection phase of one of these consultations is the other person on the receiving end, they're supposed to be talking 80% of the time. And that I think the way that you did it and where you're just like for a while, like what do you mean? Just like repeating what they back said to you with just like a question mark at the end of it. Like the best salespeople I know, like they don't talk a whole lot. They just repeat what they heard with a question mark and have them explain deeper.
Yeah.
Actually,
So
a lot easier than people make it seem. It's like you're really just like listening and just asking for clarification the whole time.
when I've screwed things up the most is when I've talked the most, when I've done the most, when I've,
Mm.
tried to do more. And that's usually when I ruin things. When somebody
Yep.
realizes like, hey, what's going on? Like it's just a it's a different it's a different philosophy. If you're
Hmm.
there to be the, again, if you're not humble and you're not realizing that it's their story that matters, not yours, then you're going to be talking more. You're going to be doing more. You're going to be trying to show that you're the expert versus letting them figure out that you're the expert and somebody that can help them and guide them and walk them through what they're having trouble with.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to fix everybody. It's the giving them the time and space to come to that conclusion on their own, and they'll be more appreciative for it because you won't be sitting there solving all their problems. You are literally helping them solve their own problems.
100%. 100%. So if you haven't studied sales, definitely start studying sales if you're watching this. If you're uncomfortable with selling and you don't consider yourself a salesperson, that's okay. Most people actually don't. I'd recommend reading a book called The Go Giver Selling or How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get into Heaven. Those are very, very good books on how to ethically sell, which is really just emotional communication, being there for someone and making sure people feel heard and listened to so that they make the decision on their own rather than being pressured. That's the way, that's our philosophy. It feels way better for everybody involved. Definitely recommend checking those out. Have you checked either of those out, James?
No,
You'd recognize
I've
a lot of the training.
yeah, I recognize it because I've been kind of like delving into it more recently.
Yeah.
That's something that's one of my things that I have to time box more for. Just
Mm.
reading outside. I've been doing a lot more like spiritual reading. I've been reading my Bible a lot more
Yeah.
lately just to because I have such little time now.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm trying to maximize it and understand like, hey, I can fit in this time for reading something else too, and continue growing in that direction. But I've definitely heard of the first book, Go Giver. Go Giver, I
Yeah,
think you said.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Go Giver. They have a whole series. It's incredible. Definitely recommend checking that one out. Those always feel really good, and I love philosophy and sales strategies, and they just pour it all together. So
Yeah.
definitely check it out.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we're a little over time. So one last question for you. You have accomplished a lot over the last several months. You're now working on hiring. What advice do you have for those who are feeling stuck in their job or have recently started a practice and they're starting to doubt themselves whether or not they can actually pull this thing off? Where did you find got you the most success in growing this thing? What kind of advice would you have for them?
Sometimes it's as simple as asking yourself a question, and a lot of us tend to hang out in these like negative mind states, which is what is self-limiting. So if you want, ask yourself a negative question. So just say, hey, what happens if I fail? Then what? Okay, so what happens if I start a business and I fail? Okay, then what? What happens if I start to lease a location and something happens to me or I can't, then what? Okay, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? Like asking yourself, like, what's the worst really takes the leg out, takes the legs out from underneath that fear because you can start to see a reality is like, okay, I can always go back and become an employee. I can always go back and work for somebody as long as you feel like it's a good fit for you, obviously. But um, you have so many chances in this life, but like they say, it's like hold on, I'm gonna ruin this. Um, if you don't take basically, if you don't take the chance, like you fail already. So
Right. Right.
why not just take a
Fail by
chance on
default.
yourself? Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's a saying around that, but I'm usually mess them up anyway. So um
You and me both.
yeah, so what I tell people is just like ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And start planning. Say, okay, open up a Word document or open up Google Docs and just start writing out your vision, start writing out your dreams. Like say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I could build this? Wouldn't it be cool if I could do that? Then go from that idea stage and say, how could I put this into practice? Just rudimentary, just put it into practice. Once you start putting energy toward it, it snowballs. Mine started from a hike. And I'm like, oh, push through performance. Okay, cool. What if I built a business on that? And it started from there. I started writing out a business plan. I started developing my ideas. Who would I see? What would I treat them for? And then I built it out from there. Nothing you do is going to be done overnight. Realize everything you do takes investment. It takes practice. It can take failure, and it takes humility and patience and perseverance and all these things. And you're going to develop them over time. It's like ask God for patience, and He's not going to give you patience. He's going to give you tests to build patience and to
Opportunities to be
recognize it.
patient.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's my message to anybody who's feeling stuck or feeling like they want to take a chance, but they can't, or they're not ready yet. It's like you're never going to be ready, are you?
Yeah, and it's crazy how much your advice has aligned with a lot of things that I've been reflecting on and trying to convey to some newer entrepreneurs about like the questions that we ask ourselves. And that is really where the source of all of our either strength or self sabotage actually comes from. Because instead of asking like, "Oh, how am I going to do that?" As you said, "How could I do that?" Just
Yeah,
that simple one word creates so many more opportunities. And if you're feeling lost and you're feeling stuck, you're probably asking yourself the wrong questions. So again, yeah, you're full of incredible wisdom here today. All of your advice was spot on. I loved it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. If you're watching this or catching the replay, make sure to give James some love in the comments. He could be seeing patients right now. He could be doing a million other things, but he's here right now to share his journey and his knowledge and wisdom with all of you. So make sure to give him some love in the comments. James, again, thank you. What's the next goal? Where are you going from here?
my next goal, honestly, is to build out to carve out a reason why I'm doing this beyond just patient care. Like I want to establish something that's not revenue based so much to speak, but some type of charity, some type of non what is the word? I can't think of the word, but uh
Like
basically like
nonprofit?
nonprofit type of thing. Like,
Yeah, like
hey,
philanthropy.
yeah, like how can push through performance support the community or like something bigger
Yeah,
than just the clinic, where we can
yeah,
start to extend out into the community and support people and like giving back. So I feel like I've
yeah.
received so much. I want to continue to give back just so that so we can keep that cycle going and support people. But I'm blessed, man, and I say God bless you guys too, and the people of the clinical marketing team. You guys are doing awesome work, and you're supporting clinicians like myself that are trying to turn a dream into a reality. And I'm going to keep on working at it and putting those lessons to use.
You're a really good person. You're really smart, and you're going to go really, really far. I'm blessed to get to be a small part of it. So thanks for being here,
Yeah.
everyone. Have a great day. Give James some love. We'll catch you later. Bye.